Again, 7:04, and today at 3 p.m., Governor Phil Murphy will unveil the final budget of his two-term tenure. Remember, in the state of New Jersey, a governor cannot run three consecutive terms, but she or he may run two terms and be elected, then wait out one term and they could run again. Just so you know, it hasn't happened yet, but it can happen. That's the way the law is written in New Jersey. Anyway, today, Governor Murphy will unveil the final budget of his two-term tenure, a proposal that is raising eyebrows and sparking fierce debate across the Garden State with a staggering $3 billion deficit, soaring property taxes, and energy costs set to climb. Critics are calling this a fiscal disaster. Joining us now is Rosemary Becchi, who is president and founder of Jersey First, to break down what his budget means for taxpayers and what's at stake as a new administration in D.C. pushes for fiscal responsibility. Apparently, the Dems in New Jersey haven't gotten the message. Rosemary, thank you for being with us this morning.
Thank you for having me.
Well, when you hear this, so let's start with the overall take. Governor Murphy's been in office now 8 years. He's had Democrats in both houses. So he's had anything he wanted. He could just literally write the rule and it'll get passed. So what grade would you give his fiscal policies?
Frankly, I would give his fiscal policies a very failing grade. His spending has just soared throughout these 8 years. And in addition, the our taxes have soared. Our property taxes has increased. Individual and corporate taxes have increased, and it's really putting a strain on New Jerseyans.
Yeah, well, this final budget obviously is coming at a time when DC is shifting gears, prioritizing the lower taxes for people and cracking down on waste, as we know with Doge. In fact, there's even a proposal by some in the state house here to have a New Jersey version of Doge. Don't know if that'll ever get passed. We can only hope. Meanwhile, New Jersey is facing a $3 billion deficit tied to runaway state spending. So, what's the real impact of a budget like that on families and taxpayers?
It has a huge impact on families in New Jersey because again, as you pointed out, our spending is just out of control, and we honestly need to learn from what's happening at the federal level right now. We need to take a hard look at the way we're spending money and get that under control. Frankly, New Jerseyans can't afford it. They can't afford increased property taxes. They can't increase. You can't increase individual taxes or, frankly, sales tax anymore.
Yeah, and unlike the federal government, which can just print money, you can't do that in state government. So Governor Murphy's proposing now some deep cuts to services in the budget, but critics point to recent big ticket items like that $193 million amount for the luxury sports stadium in Middlesex County at the college. And that is, some say, proof of misplaced priorities. When you're in this much debt, how do you spend that money? Are there specific groups that you think will feel the squeeze more than others with these tax hikes and spending decisions?
The group I worry the most about is our seniors, right? They were promised several years ago a big property tax rebate, and those rebates aren't scheduled to start paying out until 2026. And with a $3 billion deficit, it's going to make it really hard for those payments to go out. And so I really worry about that we're going to break those our promises to those seniors.
And there have been some Republicans threatening to sue the state over pork spending that only benefits certain political interests, like State Senator Declan O'Scanlan. We had him on yesterday. Do you think that's going to have an effect on the overall budget and how people respond to it?
I sure hope so. I hope that it's a sounding board and it starts to resonate with people that we need to call on this democratic body to enact real change here. I mean, we have to balance in New Jersey. We have to balance our budget, every June. And we shouldn't be borrowing money or taking money from COVID funds or things of that nature in order to fund our government. And so I am hoping that by the legislature and others really making a lot of noise around this, that maybe we'll see some real change here.
Yeah, and maybe unicorns will come out of the sky with candy for little children, and we will sing Kumbaya together as we hold hands, right? Now, I'm with you. We can only hope that. But what's so frustrating is I see the two extremes in my life that I'll share, and I've talked about this on this show many times. I live part-time in the state of Florida and mostly here in the state of New Jersey. And the state of Florida, years ago, New Jersey, you say, yeah, but the state of Florida is so much smaller. Well, now Florida is bigger. It's the third most populous state in the union. And they say, yeah, but the state of Florida doesn't have the education system that we have. Now the state of Florida's education system ranks significantly higher with better graduation rates and better colleges and everything else than the state of New Jersey. Yeah, but the state of Florida doesn't have the services that we have. Now the state of Florida, side by side comparison, has better services, more funds, etc. So the excuses are gone. They don't charge a state income tax. And even though their property taxes have started to creep up, they're still nowhere near what they are here. And you get to live in the paradise of Florida. So the question is, how is it that they're able to make it work? And by the way, they have had a budget surplus in the state of Florida with no state income tax, I might add. They've had a budget surplus for about 15 years. They haven't had a deficit in 15 years. Of course, they also had Republicans in charge. So is there, how does the state even attempt to justify constantly being in a state of debt?
You raise an outstanding point, because our services in New Jersey are going down, right? Our We are no longer have the best education system. We no longer have the best services, and it is absolutely clear that we are wasting money, and we have just got to get our fiscal house in order. And frankly, I think it's at all levels of government. I think it's not only at the state level, but also the local level. You know, we've been fighting down in Vineland, New Jersey, and pushing back on an idea where they're pushing for government owned networks for cable and internet services. And to us, that's something that the private sector should be doing, and the private sector is doing in their area and stuff. And we shouldn't be wasting government owned money, and we shouldn't be asking the feds, which the town is about to ask the federal government for more money in order to build those networks. So that's just one instance in this state where we are wasting resources. And again, as I said, I think at all levels of government, we need to really rein it in. Because frankly, once we do that, then we can start to provide some relief like they are in Florida, right? Lower taxes, maybe no state income tax. Wouldn't that be amazing? Lower property taxes. And frankly, if we lowered our corporate rate, we might attract more businesses and more jobs and more people. So, you know, I think you raise an incredible point that we ought to look to our neighbors, and we ought to look around this country and see who's doing it well. And frankly, regardless of it's a blue or red state, we ought to try to emulate it.
Right. And you know, and to your point, just take a look at what happened to New Jersey, for instance, when we jacked up the gasoline prices. People used to come into Jersey, they would make it a Saturday from New York. They would drive in. I have a sister-in-law from Rockland County, and she was raised in New City in Rockland. And they used to make it when she was growing up there. They would make it their Saturday thing or their Sunday. Well, not necessarily Sunday because of blue laws, but the Saturday thing where they would get in the car and drive down to Paramus or whatever. That was the thing. You came to New Jersey because we had low taxes. You could get your gasoline cheap. They literally, and then we have the best pizza in the country. That's one thing we still have. That's the main draw yet, thank God. But you know, there was a reason to come. Now taxes have gone up. Gasoline taxes are through the roof. If we did away with state income taxes, we would see an influx of population from New York, from Pennsylvania, from Connecticut come here. So we have beautiful homes. We have the beautiful shore. We have great food. We have a great infrastructure. Well, a good infrastructure, but maybe we'd get money to improve our infrastructure. So, but Democrats never saw a tax they didn't like. So the idea of telling a Democrat that we're going to get rid of this tax or that would be like telling a child there's no Santa Claus. It just they can't get their minds around reducing a tax because to them they salivate at the idea of a tax because it means more spending for more special interests so that they get money in their coffers when they go to run for office again. It's just a vicious cycle that just keeps going with them.
Right. And you raised a really good point about, we are potentially looking at tax increases. So, as I mentioned before, I worry about our seniors and are we really going to give them the property tax rebates that we promised them? But they're also talking about taking away sales tax exemptions, looking at increasing sales tax. And again, you're just going to drive more people out of the state, and no one will come. And so that's a big problem. We have a lot to offer in the state, and we have a lot of resources to offer. And frankly, we should be attracting more employers, but we're not. And part of that is we have got to get our fiscal house in order.
Hmm. And Rosemary, you do know the big pink elephant in the room that the governor will not mention at all today, nor will the state Democrat lawmakers. This state, as we said, is about $3+ billion in debt. However, one thing they don't mention is we spend on average $3 to $4 billion a year on illegal migrants because we are a welcoming, loving sanctuary state. We have to provide special ed teachers who can speak multiple languages, not just Spanish, but all the migrants from all over the world. We have migrants who come here from China, from India, from a number of countries. And we have to, by law, provide education in all those languages. And we have to provide 3 squares a day at school. And we then hand them a voucher so that they have money for when they first get here. And then we give them a place to live. All right, because we're a compassionate people, don't get me wrong. But because we have opened the doors, it's actually opening the floodgates. If you just cut back on the spending for illegal migrants, we wouldn't be 3 to 4 billion in debt. But they refuse to talk about that. It's not even an issue. They just refuse to even bring that up, which drives me, as you can see, insane. One last question. We got about 30 seconds left because I keep ranting. What can the next governor do to help dig us out of this fiscal mess? And the way things are looking, the next governor could very well be a Republican because the number of registered Republicans has come up by 140 some odd thousand in the state, and the number of registered Democrats has gone down by 17,000. So there is a good chance that because of the shift, we could see a Republican. That said, what do you think the next governor could do to help change all this?
Absolutely, and frankly, whoever we elect as governor has got to focus on our budget and our deficit, as you just talked about. We cannot be spending an extra $3 billion every year. We cannot have soaring budgets, and so the most important thing to do is take a hard look at how we're spending money. You just pointed out that we're spending so much money on illegal immigrants, yet we can't even take care of our own people. What about our vets, the disabled community? Those are the people that we should be taking care of.
Our
And
seniors.
and so the next yes, and our seniors. And our next governor needs to figure that out and really needs to take a hard look, just like what's happening at the federal level. It's not easy, but at the federal level, we can't afford what's happening. In the last quarter, the federal government, we spent 15% more. Our spending went up 15% more. And that was just inflation. It wasn't anything else. And so, we across this country, particularly in New Jersey, we've really got to rein it in.
Yeah, we are the only country on the planet that is trillions and trillions in debt. In fact, we're more in debt than every other country on the planet combined. We are trillions in debt, yet we borrow money to give it away to other people. It's insanity. It's unsustainable. Liberals love to use the word unsustainable. It's unsustainable, guys. And it's got to end. And hopefully it's ending right now. Rosemary Becchi, president and founder of Jersey First. Please don't be a stranger. Come back again. Thank you so much for joining us this early morning.
Thank you for having me.